Well, hello everybody. Welcome down into the dungeon. It's Sunday the 25th of March. Technically spring, far from it outside in my yard. But I've got a good start going on here, so I figured we would literally start at the beginning, because beside me is the new seed tower shelf. Nothing really to report on this yet, except maybe I'm kind of thinking I should put the space heater beside it. Haven't checked the temperature here, but I'm not seeing the same kind of condensation under these tops that I was, even under the fluorescent light. So this may not have been quite as brilliant as I thought, but at least now that they're all on the trays, they're certainly easy to move. So that's good. Went and got some more party cups the other day, because I see faintly see a need for them in my future. Yes, one hopes anyway. I guess the next stage of things would be this table here. Ha ha ha. Was hoping to find another one of these 72 cell trays today, but it turns out the Home Hardware up in Shoal isn't open on Sundays. Kind of should have known that, but they have a few things that are open on the weekends. So I was hopeful. False hope, but I had it all the same. So since I've been wiggling things around and making the illusion of a bit more space, I've kind of decided it's time to get them, well, a few more things going. I've got a little stack of assorted melons and squash that I've already planted tons of those. Put that to the side. Alright, I've got a bunch of melons and squash here, as I was saying, that I think I'd like to get started with sometime soon. They do seem to be slow goers for me, so I think having a little bit of a jump there will probably be a good thing. Just checking the cups here. Almost looks like in the very center there might be something popping up there. So that's nice. Slowly but surely getting the bits of the outside garden together, so that'll be good. That'll be good. Very excited about the cabbage. Didn't get much from that with last year's, but it was very enjoyable all the same. Little Sugar Rush peach there. Kind of lonely, but I think I have Sugar Rush peach in here as well. Kind of lost track. I did make the list yesterday of varieties. I have 29 pepper varieties going at the moment, not including assorted sprouts in here. And I don't see much from that red ghost at the moment, but it's still just hiding away in its corner. Be nice to see a few other varieties pop up in there, all things in time. I'm not impatient, I just don't like waiting. Alright, moving over here to the aquaponic portion of things. And guests, I suppose. This basil is finally starting to do something down there. I need to go in with those little scissors and clip off some of those earlier leaves, but yeah, looks like we might have some decent growth going on there. This ahi panic is looking a little bit better, but definitely working to go towards this one light. I really need to get a second light fixture for over this, as I've said so many times, but all things in time. Green onions just got a haircut today, so they're, perky, but a little tiny. Duck under the wire here. These mint are, of course, doing fantastic. Those mint are doing fantastic. Those kale seem to be doing alright. Or our chard are looking okay. Still haven't transplanted the bigger one over, but kind of enjoying it as an experiment right now. Not much going on with this particular tomato or this particular kale, but they are at the end of the light, and we're starting to get some signs of wear on the bulb here, so I don't know how much longer this light's got for me. Grr and stuff. As for the other starts in the cups here, though, most things seem to be doing alright. A couple of questionable kale, but I can afford some losses in that category. So yeah, things are doing alright here. Turn the grow light off so we can see these plants in sort of a normal spectrum. This elderberry's not looking terribly happy, but signs of new growth, so that's good. Over here we've got the Sugar Rush Red. Again, I don't know if it's because I want to see it or what, but there does appear to be signs of life on there, so I'm still hopeful for this one. The Yellow Scorpion, I think it's probably much easier to see the bits of new growth on there without the grow light on. Down here at the Nepalese bell and this little fabric planter. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think maybe there's a little bit going on back there. Too soon to tell, too soon to tell. It's probably going to make me suffer and wait for a while. The El Oro de Ecuador looks fantastic since I cut all those tops off, so even if they don't root, probably still for the best of the plant. But back here, on the granddaddy plant of all of these, we've got the sand dollar, and it is definitely putting on new growth. There are a few places where you can see it quite nicely. Few weeks, I figure. There's one in the back. So yeah, a few more weeks and then we'll start to see some really obvious signs of growth on that. That is super exciting because that thing's been around a while. I mean, I know it's just a plant, but I'm kind of attached. Back here, those two spider plants are doing great. All those chard transplants seem to be pretty content. That little drawer is working out well for a watering tray, so that's nice. And it is just kind of off to the side of the light, so it's not getting huge amounts, but all in all, things over here seem to be doing well. And then we got this. This here is not necessarily doing well. I'd say that is the perfect example of how things are doing here. However, I have been contacted by a gentleman on Facebook who says he's going to send me some rooting gel because he's tired of seeing all these cuttings die. So that will be curious, and I'll be very happy to try it. We'll see. I hear great things about it. I find the price prohibitive. What can I say? I'm cheap. It's probably what it boils down to. But as I mentioned earlier, if those cuttings live, if they die, it doesn't matter. This plant is definitely looking much happier. And keeping this alive is the goal. So let's give it back some light, shall we? So I guess moving around, that brings us to this little middle shelf here. Still got some tomatoes that need to be transplanted out. Got two different varieties, Tiny Tims or something in the back there. These garden salsa pepper transplants are not looking fantastic yet, and as you can see, these two in the back are still in their domes, all flopped over. I think their time has come and gone, but that's okay. I've got other options with the garden salsas, so not too terribly worried. Little Sugar Rush cream in the end there seems to be doing alright. Little ladybugs visiting in the middle. Lettuce in the back from grocery store, just chucked it into some water, plunked it under the lights. Get a few sandwiches out of that at least. Still haven't transferred all of this over to that other worm bin yet, but going through it, it's getting a much nicer consistency in general. So I don't know if that's just for me mucking about with it, or the worm's actually doing something, or just getting a chance to dry, but it's not bad. Been mixing that in with the perlite to carry on making my planting soil. Seems to be working out fairly well. Still happy with the look and feel of this, so carrying on. Guess that brings us to the top shelf under the spot lamps. These tomatoes seem to be doing fairly well. Got a couple of peppers in the back. Those are ahi penic, I believe. Doing alright. I mean, it's nothing amazing that's going on under these particular lights, but it does seem to be enough to keep them growing just a little bit. Seem to have an awful lot of ahi penics growing this year. But this one paper lantern left in the water bottle. I transplanted the others the other day. Look at the roots that are forming in there. And I was just amazed by the amount of roots that had formed in there. So I've decided to leave that paper lantern to suffer for a bit for the sake of science. This is the last of the sand dollar cuttings, which I'm not ready to give up on yet. Maybe when the last of those leaves finally fall off, I'll call it quits, but until then, I am eternally hopeful. One day I will clone a pepper. It's not so much to ask. Moving down. Got the houseplant and herb shelf nowadays, I guess. This pythos is pretty much toast. I don't know. Can't really turn these lights off. I can turn one of them off. Only helps so much. But this pythos is pretty much toast. This Dieffenbachia is, I don't know why it did this with the stem. But it just kind of turned itself back up one day, and it's been growing that way ever since. Strange little plant. Rosemary back there seems to be pretty happy in its new container, so that's good. I'm very excited about that. And under these LEDs, it seems to be growing upwards a little bit more as compared to the other LEDs where it was growing sideways, so that's interesting. The sage seems to be settling into its new home. We've got the little lemon tree under here now. Little astrid pep back there. That seems to put on a fair bit of growth actually since I've moved it over. Nice to see these two coffee trees beside each other. And the mint, well, the mint is doing what mint does. It's growing crazy, so that's not too shabby. So in the theme of standard lighting, I've turned off this grow light too so we can see things in their proper hues. Turns out it's pretty dark over here without this particular light on, but all the same, good to see the actual proper greens of things. I was looking around at the roots on, was it this one? Earlier. Kind of impressed by that, considering it hasn't really been in the coffee can very long. I'd say it's responding very well. And was it this one here? Yeah, it's just exploding out the base of that cup, so that is very exciting too. But I mean, clearly look at them compared to the rest of the plants. These are definitely the happiest plants in my garden, without question. This Grandpa's Siberian home here is just going nuts with its flower production. And it initially had the nicest root response, but not a lot of fresh growth on those, especially not compared to what we saw on that one there. The new Peruvian is settling in, doesn't have anything coming out yet, just that tiny little root for that ring of fire there. Have been advised though that those two apparently like to get kind of tall, so, well, figure things out with the light when the time comes. Looking around, that chocolate naga brain is still being pampered, but still technically alive. I have high hopes for that, high hopes for that. That MOA Scotch bonnet I'm a little concerned about though. We got the sand dollars along the back here, and quite a few ahi varieties, some random kales tucked in. That one nasturtium. This thing has been such great bait for those little aphids, I tell you. It's fantastic. Guaranteed fish treats every time I shake it out. That one matchbox here. Still kind of waiting because I've seen a few flowers come and go on this. Not seeing a lot going on with an actual pepper. But all things in time. I'm really stoked about these tomatoes. Turns out I have 14 varieties of tomatoes going for this year's garden already. And that's not including things that are planted over there or things that are planted over there. So yeah, 14 tomatoes, 29 different types of peppers. It's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting year. Definitely excited by the number of varieties though, because I want to keep one of each kind of down here so that I can keep it going under these lights and hopefully have a perpetual pepper garden. And yeah, always good to start with a nice variety for a project like that. Get to see which peppers you like, you don't like, which ones do well, which ones don't do well. Yeah, but I should put the light back on over here, so watch your eyes. Such a change. Plants seem to like it though. So up here in the kitchen, the promised kitchen window update. Things on top of the fridge seem to be doing surprisingly well. We've got a nice double cup shard going on here. It's very happy. A little thin in its leaves, could probably use a nutrient boost, but the coffee tree over there is doing alright. This mint is going crazy. It's getting on time to transplant this basil though. Definitely time to transplant that basil. This cat mint is going nuts. Look at these roots. Just goes on forever. And it's quite dry. Apparently I need to water that. Alright, but we're going to transplant these today. So it turns out we're just transplanting the sweet basil today because the other planter doesn't actually fit. I thought they were both the same size, but they're not. Nice, it's a bit of root growth on this little guy though. Ought to appreciate that upgrade. Well, at least one of them gets to be a happier plant today. I'll keep looking. I was sure I had at least another one of these the same size, but that's going to work out really well for the double cup style because it doesn't quite hit the bottom there. There's a bit of a reservoir so the roots can grow down into that and just suck up the nutrients and water that way. The smell of bash and a basil around. It's another one of those gardening smells. I love it. Love it! That does look much better overall in the front window though, so I'll have to keep looking. I was sure I had another one of those for that cup there. And I guess that takes us up to the studio to check on the spider plants. And then upstairs in the studio, these spider plants have just been dealing with what natural light they get through that teeny tiny window. And this one is going crazy. Everything hanging is out of this little tiny plot here. But I don't think I can ever recall seeing flowers on one of my spider plants before, so I wanted to share that little moment. Not a pepper, but c'est la vie. And that is what is still going on outside. So I think we're still going to be doing indoor pepper updates for a while. But it is starting to melt. It is starting to melt. And that is where I think I'm going to wrap things up today. Thank you all so much for joining with me as we take a look at everything that's pretty much growing on around here. And yeah, tomorrow's Monday, so I guess I will see you guys on Tuesday. Take care, everybody. And what do you know? Another random ladybug in the studio to take down to the free aphid buffet.